2. It's about the finance function. Okay, so we're going to see a finance function question. Originally quoted and asked to support a particular individual who's asked to join your organisation as an AT trainee. So we're going to see some sort of straightforward or simple questions sometimes in here, but it's a finance function question, so you might see some sort of ropey sort of things that we just have to roll with. So identify who's responsible for each of the following tasks. That's really quite a nice straightforward question. So preparing the financial statements. So let's just go through who the individual characters are then. So the internal auditors, they check whether companies are compliant with their proceeds, their procedures and their systems. Really, do they follow their approach? And the other thing as well that internal auditors tend to do as well is we might have some specialist knowledge, and they might sort of be able to sort of tell us whether we're complying, let's say, with some funding rules, something like that. So that's what the internal auditors tend to do. The owners of the business, so they own the business, they're going to sort of they're going to approve accounts. They might agree the appointment of directors, that kind of thing. External auditors, so they're going to review the financial statements, and they're going to provide an opinion about whether the financial statements are true and fair. They might also, as well, you wouldn't do this at AAT level 2, but they might also provide statements on things like regularity of whether the funds have been used in a regular and appropriate way, but mainly true and fair audit opinion. So preparing the financial statements is the finance director. So that's the finance director left off in that one. So the answer to that one is the finance director. And signing the audit certificate for the financial statements. So as I said, we've got two sets of auditors here. Internal are going to check the whether compliance with systems, notes and procedures, and they're also as well going to provide some specialist knowledge, but they're not going to provide a sign off on the financial statements. That is the external auditors. They're going to provide an opinion about whether the statements are true and fair, subject to some limitations. The external auditors could rely on the internal auditors' work on sort of systems notes to affect their risk. That's a theoretical position. In reality, all external auditors follow substantive audits, and it's because it's just more cost effective, really, rather than checking the risk and doing systems audits. Systems audits is just something that I used to do, sort of 28 years ago, and they died. And unfortunately, they died a death back then. So that one's going to be the external auditors. So a systems audit to reduce risk and therefore reduce the amount of substantive testing is a theoretical concept that doesn't really sort of have a place in a modern auditing point of view. But you might see it later on at higher levels when you're doing audit. Okay, so identify which group will require the following information. Okay, so we got here, and this is where these sort of questions start to break down a little bit, really. But we just have to roll with it. And the general thing, if you're struggling to work out which one's which, then think about the bean counter kind of answer, and that will be the one for AAT. So overtime payments, and HR would actually have an interest in overtime payments because they'll want to see that people are not working too many hours, so they won't go over 48 hours a week. And also as well, if somebody's doing, let's say, 50 hours a week or whatever of overtime, you'd have to question the quality of that work, really, when they're getting driven into the ground. You'd be better off employing another person, really, than having two people that would be there. One in terms of their freshness and how well they're approaching it, and also two in terms of how reliant we're on a particular staff member. So although in reality it's the human resources department, that doesn't sound like a bean counter answer to me. So let's leave that one alone for the moment. Payroll department will need that to process the payroll, and so that will be the answer here, because that's very bean country. And HMRC couldn't care less, really, whether it was overtime, whether it was normal. They're just interested in the total payments, and so that one's going to be the payroll department. Even though in real life, HR department has a big increase, and you can identify which group is sort of saying which one in here. Really, and you're sort of like just going to tick one. Really, it wouldn't. It's those two. But that's where this assessment rolls. I'm afraid you just have to roll with it. As I said, if in doubt, pick the most bean counter answer. So let's go. Customer accounts that have exceeded their credit limit. Alright, so the production department's not going to be interested about customer accounts. Production department just makes things. HMRC couldn't give a monkey's either. It's just looking in terms of whether somebody makes the organisation makes a profit for it to be able to tax it, or whether it makes sales to be able to tax it. Here, it's going to be the sales department, and the reason why is because we would block customers. They've exceeded their credit limit, they're not having any more. Sales department stops selling to those people until either we decide to increase their credit limit or they pay their bill. Okay. Right, identify which department will make use of information supplied by the financial function. So this is going to very much be a role with it question, because again, we've got this sort of thing where we're making a statement. It's going to be one or the other, even though you can always make an argument for. So let's go. The costs of goods returned. Okay. Now, in reality, the warehouse department will need this information because they'll need it to work out stock figures. But the ones that really would need this more, it would be the production department. And the reason why is, let's say we're dealing with a supplier, and they're giving us loads and loads of faulty goods, and as a consequence, our production line is stopping. So our production line stopping, everything's sort of grinding to a halt, and we've got two things that we can do here. Either our production line stopped, we're just going to wait for another supply to turn up that's actually not faulty, and that's cost us a fortune. Or alternatively, we're having to carry a load of stock than we really want to do, because we can't really rely on the products that we're being given. So we're having to sort of make sure that we don't stop our production line. We have to carry twice as much stock as we need to, because of we don't know which bit's faulty or not. Really, we can't just stop our production line. So it is production here on this one. Even though you could very much say, well, the warehouse department needs to know the cost of goods returned because they need to adjust their stock figures. This is why this is a bad question. The cost of faulty materials returned to the seller. Okay, so in this one here, the buyer was this one up here. So this was, let me just go back up to here. This one was where we were the buyer, and really it should have been the cost of goods returned by the buyer. That top one there. This one's the cost of goods returned to the seller. So yeah, I mean it's faulty materials returned to the seller, and so really, well, would the production department want to sort of have a hand in this one? Because our sellers are returning their goods. The production department is producing a lot of rubbish. Really, it's very interesting or very important for the production department. But let's look. What's the most bean counter answer we can have? Well, the warehouse department is going to have to record the materials returned from the seller, or well, returned to the seller. So cost of faulty materials returned to the seller. The answer is warehouse in here, right? And this is cost of goods returned here, cost of faulty materials returned here. Same thing. One's production, one's warehouse, according to AAT. The reality is both are interested. You just have to roll with it. That's just that. IT technology charges for the stock management system. Well, that is the warehouse. Production doesn't give a monkeys about that, really. The warehouse, I think needs to know how much its stock control system is costing us. Really, is it really cheap, and therefore might not be giving us the answers that we want? Is it really expensive and we don't really need it? So that one is going to be important for the warehouse. There. So if you're looking at this question here, well, look, there's one mark that we're certain. There's two marks, frankly, that you could answer in either direction, and either direction would be right or wrong in this one here. So it's 50-50 on that one. So in this thing here, you could end up with a third of the marks. And this is the problem with this assessment, that you have to sort of roll with these kind of things and just not get cut up about it. And then later on, we're going to have to score 100% in things like the written ones. And where students fail is because they're sort of a bit weak on written questions and a bit weak on the double entry bookkeeping, so they're not getting 100% in those sections really here. And then this kind of stuff comes in and finishes them off. So yeah, not a great question, that one, really. I've put the answers there, but frankly, these two, I would have gone production, warehouse if it was me personally. But you could argue one way or the other. Right. Aisha's asked you for help with planning her workload. She's confided in you that she's struggling to meet her deadlines. This is where we're starting to get the sort of here, and we're going to prioritize our work here. And if we're going to prioritize, we have important and urgent. We have not important and urgent. We have important but not urgent. And then we have not important. not urgent. Ooh. So you drop them in there, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and we're going to sort of fit them through. She's asked to provide some important urgent information for a meeting at 11:30. She's going to fit that in, and it's going to take an hour. Okay, so she has to deal with her emails right up front. So she has to do her emails right at the front, and that takes her from 9 to 10. Okay, so she has to do that though, because it's sort of telling us that's what she has to do at the start of the day. And she's then got to have her. She's got to do her important thing, hasn't she? So we're going to provide the information. She has to do that between 10 and 11:30. That's the hour and a half we got there. And she has a lunch break for an hour, isn't she? Which she's got to fit somewhere in there. But she's she's got a meeting between 11 and it takes her an hour, doesn't it? That's 1 hour. That goes 10 to 11. Sorry, that's 10 to 11. She's then going to crack on with something else. So what's she going to do next? Well, she can't do the payment run until after the invoices. So she's going to process her invoices next, doesn't she? Process invoices. That's going to be an hour, 11 till 12. Okay. And then she's got her cover desk and lunch. And that is 12 till 2. 12 till 2. Okay. Now, in terms of the rest of her day, we've done the invoices, so we're going to prepare we would come back at lunch and we would prepare the payment run. We don't actually have to keep doing this, but let's just see what she would do. She'd be doing that between 2 and 3 p.m. And then there's emails at the end, isn't there? Emails. So that's 4 to 5. Right, okay. 4 to 5 p.m. Alright, so that's the day there, really. Completely full day, no gaps, whatever in there. So that's how it would look. We don't really have these ones after the lunchtime, but that's how it would be. So what you do is you drop them into those different boxes in here, so we can see this was important and urgent, done at 9 to 10. This was important and urgent, done there. Then this was well, sort of not urgent. It's important, not urgent in here, and there was nothing urgent after that. We just had to fit it all in, really, wasn't it? All those ones where were in the sort of important but not urgent in terms of that. That's how we do it. Right. So we fill down that. And next thing in here. So what else does she have? Right. Okay. Oh, sorry, I chopped off the rest of the answer. Right, okay, so what happens then is Aisha's getting a bit stressed out about the whole of her, because if you look at this timing here, it's running, there's no gap whatsoever in terms of that thing there. It's all got to be fitted in. So Aisha's getting very concerned about that. What should she do? So should she throw a sickie? No, never throw a sickie. That would be a bad idea. So what advice am I going to do? Throw a sickie? No, absolutely not. Stay late and finish the task. In reality, always stay late and suck it up. Speak to a line manager and explain she needs help to finish all her tasks. That's the answer there, isn't it? That's the sort of the HR answer, which is what we would go through in here. So speak to a line manager and explain she needs help to finish all of her tasks. Actually, she doesn't. She just needs to get on with the work, really, and it all fits in there. Stay late and finish the task. Would have perhaps been my answer, to be honest with you, in real life, because seems to fit perfectly well. Right, and so let's identify whether the following statements about the use of technology within the finance function are true or false. Staff in the finance function should never use information collected from the website as not a reliable source of data. So, well, not really. No, I mean you would use something. I mean it might not be the most reliable source of data, but it's certainly got some reliability there. Useful information can be collected using mobile phone apps. So yeah, you could collect things using mobile phone apps if you wanted to. So that would be false and true. Strange question, really, but there we are. And that's a bit where we went through this kind of thing. In reality, how do these sort of questions sort of work in this assessment? They're all a bit sort of ambiguous, really, aren't they? So staff in the finance function should never use information, and when you see should never, unless you're sort of staff in the finance function should never steal from the company, it's always sort of highlighting to you a bit of a red flag in terms of should never. So that's obviously a false there. And then the use of information can be collected using mobile apps. Well, yeah, of course it can. So that is the end of that question.